Welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking you straight into a sterile, terrifyingly bright room to start today's exploration.
Yeah, right into the deep end.
Exactly. So just picture this. You jolt awake, the fluorescent lights overhead are harsh, the medical monitors are, beeping rhythmically in the background, and for a fraction of a second, your overriding sensation is just pure relief.
Because you survived.
Right. You survived a horrific, catastrophic car crash. But before that relief can even fully register, the disorientation hits you. There's this thick, really uncomfortable medical tube snaking down your throat. You look up, obviously searching for a reassuring face, maybe someone to tell you it's going to be okay.
But that is not what you get.
Not at all. Instead, the nurse standing over your bed is looking at you with an expression that the reviewers at the Look-See podcast described as treating the patient like gum on her shoe.
Man, that's such a brutal description.
It really is. Today, we're pulling from a recent, extensive breakdown by those Look-See reviewers. They've been analyzing the first two chapters of Anthony Miracho's brand new sci-fi thriller, Father's Love Beyond Time and Space.
Which is just a wild ride right from the jump.
Totally. Our mission today is to explore how this author uses a profoundly jarring physical transformation to test the absolute limits of a father's love. We're looking at how he strips away a man's wealth, his status, his very skin, leaving him with absolutely nothing but his core motivation.
And that premise immediately forces us to reevaluate the boundaries of privilege and identity. The way the Look-See podcast breaks down these opening chapters shows Miracho he's not holding anything back.
No, he really isn't.
He plunges the reader and the protagonist into this completely hostile environment from the very first page. Like you said, that nurse's reaction, it's a silent indicator that the context of his survival is terribly wrong.
Yeah.
It establishes this baseline of alienation before the character even understands what's happened to him.
And the hits just keep coming in this sequence. A doctor walks in, checks the medical chart at the end of the bed, and casually addresses you as Daniel.
Right.
But your name is not Daniel. Your name is Jackson. So you try to speak to correct this bizarre clerical error, but the tube prevents it. So you look down at your hands, resting on the stark white hospital blanket, expecting to see your familiar pale skin and the freckles you've had your entire life. But what you see instead are darker hands. Hands with a small faded tattoo you have never seen before.
Jeez. This is the visceral horror the reviewers highlight as the novel's true inciting incident. It's an ultimate violation of self.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
The physical vessel has completely changed, and the person trapped inside is experiencing this profound disconnect. The Look-See podcast hosts spent a significant amount of time discussing the psychological weight of this specific moment. Because when he finally manages to communicate the need for a mirror, the reflection that stares back prompts a terrified scream.
Because it's a complete stranger.
Exactly. The narrative shifts so seamlessly from the trauma of surviving a crash to the existential dread of body horror.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to truly grasp the magnitude of the displacement happening in that hospital bed, we have to look at the life that was just erased.
Right, who he was before.
Yeah. The Look-See reviewers analyze exactly who Jackson is on the inside. He isn't just some average guy who woke up in the wrong place. Jackson is a brilliant introvert.
He's a tech genius.
A massive tech genius. He built a sprawling fortune entirely from nothing. We are talking about the self-made billionaire archetype, the kind of guy who can visualize complex data structures and write algorithms to predict the chaotic fluctuations of the stock market.
What's fascinating here is the juxtaposition. He possesses immense intellectual and financial power, but the reviewers noted he was so socially awkward he couldn't figure out how to hold a basic conversation at a cocktail party.
Oh yeah, totally isolated.
His wealth and his intellect were his armor. They insulated him from a world he didn't quite know how to interact with organically.
And now, that armor is entirely gone. Just poof. In the blink of an eye, the narrative shifts him from a billionaire tech genius to a man recovering from a heroin overdose. Because that is exactly who the hospital staff believes Daniel is.
There is a staggering contrast.
It really is. The reviewers point out that this creates such an intense friction. Jackson's internal reality is now fundamentally at odds with his external reality.
And Miracho highlights this friction through a very specific detail that the Look-See hosts praised highly. So Jackson, still possessing the mind, the vocabulary, the syntax of a highly educated CEO, asks the hospital staff for that mirror.
Right.
And because he still thinks like Jackson, he asks for it in a perfectly clear, hyper-articulate, polite sentence.
It is a phenomenal moment in the text. The reviewers detail how that single sentence completely shatters the medical staff's preconceived notions. Like, they physically react to it.
They step back. It creates an immediate cognitive dissonance in the room. The doctors and nurses look at Daniel's body and expect a certain demeanor.
Maybe a lack of coherence.
Yeah, exactly. Based entirely on their societal assumptions about drug addiction and class. So when this pristine, polite syntax comes out of this patient's mouth, it forces them to recalibrate, and it forces the listener to confront how heavily we rely on external markers to judge a person's worth, capability, and even their right to be heard.
Imagine you wake up, and your entire history, your accomplishments, your reputation completely erased.
Gone.
Everything Jackson has ever done to build his life means absolutely nothing in that room, because no one looking at him believes he is capable of being anything other than what his medical chart says.
Right.
He's being entirely judged and dismissed by the societal assumptions attached to a stranger's body.
It represents a profound loss of agency. The Looksy podcast makes a great point here. Miracho is using this sci-fi body swap trope not just for a surprising twist, but to strip a man down to his absolute core.
Yeah.
If you take away his money, his influence, his own face, you're left with the raw nerve of a human being.
Lying in that bed, trapped in a stranger's body, the Looksy reviewers point out that Jackson is finally forced to confront the sequence of events that led him to this nightmare.
He has to look back.
He does, and that requires looking back at the life he just lost. We have to take a look at his backstory, specifically his marriage to Aliana. The source material makes it very clear that Aliana wasn't just a walking red flag. To quote the reviewers directly, she was neon billboards with sirens.
That is a very evocative description from the podcast.
Isn't it?
It implies that the danger she posed was impossible to miss for anyone looking objectively. Yet Jackson, with all his algorithms and analytical brilliance, either couldn't see it or desperately didn't want to.
Well, she was stunning and overwhelmingly charming. But the reviewers point out that it was painfully obvious to the reader that she was only after Jackson's massive fortune, not the awkward nerd who possessed it. Once they were married, the facade dropped and the emotional abuse began. She subjected him to constant belittling, routinely comparing him to her exes, basically systematically making this brilliant man feel incredibly small in his own home.
It sets up a classic tragedy. The genius who can control vast digital empires and navigate complex market trends cannot control or even navigate the toxicity in his personal life.
Yeah, he's totally paralyzed.
He's passive. He allows the abuse to happen because he lacks the social and emotional tools to fight back. But the true catalyst of this entire narrative isn't about the marriage failing.
No, the catalyst is their baby daughter, Alicia.
Yes.
The Looksy reviewers detail an incredible heartbreaking scene that serves as the turning point for Jackson's entire existence. He comes home one day and walks in on an absolute nightmare. He finds his wife, Aliana, with her hand raised, about to physically strike their little baby girl.
That is the moment the paradigm shifts entirely.
Completely.
The source material describes an icy click inside of Jackson. The reviewers spent a good deal of time unpacking that specific phrase.
Because it's not a fiery rage.
Exactly. It isn't described as a fiery, uncontrollable, screaming rage. It is an icy, calculated, absolute resolve. In that split second, the awkward, passive tech genius vanishes, and a fiercely protective father is born.
Wow.
The algorithmic mind finally computes a problem with absolute clarity. He must protect Alicia at all costs.
That icy click locks in his mission. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't try to reason with Aliana or argue. He grabs his daughter and makes a desperate attempt to flee.
Just get out of there.
He just wants to escape the abuse and give his little girl a life of, as the book phrases it, sunflowers and silly songs. He wants to provide pure, unadulterated innocence far away from the toxicity of his wealth and his wife.
But the escape goes horribly wrong.
So it's a little wrong?
Which leads directly to the inciting incident we started with.
Because Aliana is in the car, and as the Looksy reviewers state, she proves herself to be an absolute monster in this scene. In the middle of this high-speed, desperate flight, she lunges and grabs the steering wheel.
It's terrifying.
She intentionally causes a catastrophic car crash rather than let Jackson take her daughter away from her. And obviously, the daughter is her ultimate leverage over his massive fortune.
This brings us to one of the most poignant thematic elements highlighted by the podcast. As the car is crashing, as the metal is crushing around him, and Jackson's original life is coming to a violent end, the narrative provides us with his final conscious thought.
It's such a gut punch. His last thought as Jackson the billionaire wasn't about his money. It wasn't about his tech companies, his legacy, his fleet of Ferraris. His final thought is just a pure, desperate prayer.
Yeah.
He prays to be a better dad in the next life. He prays to marry kindness.
It is a complete, devastating shedding of ego. In the face of death, his wealth meant absolutely nothing to him. The reviewers noted that this is a powerful critique of his own choices.
Definitely.
He realizes his brilliant analytical mind failed him in life's most important fundamental choice. His only regret was his inability to provide a safe environment for his child. It really distills his entire character down to a single overriding priority.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's bring the focus back to that sterile hospital room in Chapter 2. Jackson has just seen the stranger's face in the mirror. He is screaming, utterly panicked and agitated by his new reflection.
Which is a completely rational response, by the way.
Right. But the hospital staff, viewing him through the lens of a combative addict, is forced to sedate him. They push the heavy drugs into his forefinger. But the look-see reviewers highlight a crucial detail here. As the dark sedative pulls him under, his brain is fighting a losing battle against the chemicals, but his singular anchoring concept is still his mission.
His only thought is Alicia.
Exactly, Alicia.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author uses that moment of forced unconsciousness to solidify the stakes. This isn't just a story about surviving a crash or navigating the bizarre reality of adjusting to a new body.
No.
Jackson's dying prayer was technically answered. He's been given a second chance, a literal next life. But he's been granted this chance in a form he cannot control, facing odds that seem just insurmountable.
The reviewers point out the immense societal and logistical hurdle Miracho has placed in front of his protagonist here. It's the ultimate high-stakes gotcha. Jackson is now inhabiting the dark-skinned body of a man whose society has already labeled a drug addict and a lost cause.
Right.
He has zero ID, zero resources, and a medical chart that guarantees he will be treated with suspicion by every single authority figure he encounters. Meanwhile, his daughter, Alicia, is light-skinned and currently in the custody of his incredibly wealthy, highly connected, and ruthless widow.
The socioeconomic and racial dynamics at play amplify the tension exponentially. The author is taking the fundamental bond of a father and child and placing the absolute thickest, most impenetrable walls of societal prejudice and legal consequence right between them.
It's a fortress.
Exactly. The Look-See podcast spent considerable time analyzing how Miracho builds this fortress around Alicia. Aliana has the wealth, she has the gated community, the lawyers, and the implicit trust of the legal system. Daniel has absolutely nothing.
It's a terrifying logistical nightmare. Think about it. How on earth is Jackson, looking the way he does now, going to even approach his daughter in an upper-class neighborhood without immediately being tackled by private security and thrown into a police cruiser on kidnapping charges?
It seems impossible.
The reviewers were quick to mention that this fits perfectly into Anthony Miracho's thematic universe, but he's pushing it to a crazy new extreme.
Yeah, they noted that this feels like a massive, sophisticated evolution of his writing style. They specifically compared it to his previous book, The Ghost in the Mirror.
Oh, right. In that previous novel, a woman wakes up dead and takes over someone else's body.
Yeah.
So Miracho is clearly already a master of this specific waking up dead and body swap sci-fi trope.
He knows the territory.
He knows exactly how to write the existential dread and the mechanical puzzles of that kind of experience.
But the crucial difference the reviewers emphasize is that with Father's Love Beyond Time and Space, he isn't just playing with the sci-fi mechanics of a body swap for the sake of a clever mystery.
Right, it's not just a puzzle box.
No, he is taking those mechanics and using them as a pressure cooker to test human devotion. The sci-fi element is merely the vehicle to explore a deeply grounded human struggle.
So what does this all mean? When we look at all these pieces the reviewers have laid out, the tech genius background, the abusive marriage, the tragic crash, the shocking awakening in his stigmatized body, it becomes clear that this source material is incredibly ambitious.
Highly ambitious.
It is a raw, visceral exploration of parental love stretching far beyond the limits of physical reality. By stripping this character of all his wealth, his privilege, his reputation, and his literal skin, the author forces Jackson to rely entirely on his devotion to his child.
There are no algorithms he can write to buy his way out of this situation.
Exactly. He only has his love and his raw determination to navigate a world that is now actively hostile to his existence.
It forces the character to navigate the world from a position of profound disadvantage, fueled solely by the most primal human instinct, protecting one's offspring.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the Look-See Podcast's review, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over, something that builds right on the foundation of the source text we've been discussing today.
It's a fascinating angle to consider.
Remember Jackson's final prayer in the car? He prayed to be a better dad in the next life. Now, the universe technically granted his prayer by giving him a next life, but it placed him in the body of a societal outcast.
Right, which seems incredibly cruel.
Exactly. It seems cruel at first glance. But challenge yourself to consider the irony here. Is Daniel's body a cruel cosmic joke, or is there a hidden tactical reason why this specific body, someone largely invisible to high society, is the absolute only way Jackson can slip past his rich, monstrous wife to save his daughter?
Oh, that is such a compelling way to look at it. If he woke up as another wealthy CEO, Aliana would see him coming from a mile away.
Exactly. But a discarded, invisible man. He might be the ultimate Trojan horse.
That makes you want to read the rest of the book immediately.
It really does. It completely reframes his massive disadvantage as a potential stealth asset. We hope this exploration has given you some incredible new perspectives on how authors use high-concept sci-fi to tell deeply human stories. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey today. Keep questioning the layers of the stories you consume, and as always, keep diving deep. We will catch you on the next one.